well, I'm going to call the meeting in order. One of the first things I want to do is just do quick introductions, couple faces, and make sure everybody's familiar with everybody. So you want to start around the room, James, and you want
to? James, Fred, District 1 Supervisor for the Homestead County SWCD.
Dave Senjum, I'm a board appointee to this. I'm not sure what else I am. Homestead County Board.
Yeah.
Lynn Zabel, Waukesha County Soil and Water.
Okay.
Josh Olson, County Commissioner for Winona.
Ross Graydon, Soil and Water District, Winona County.
Dawn Burnell, the Minnesota Department of Ag.
And Sheila Harms, the Watershed Coordinator.
Good. All right. I'm going to call public comments, even though nobody's here, but we'll call it once, twice, and 3 times. So we'll move on to hearing none. We'll move on to number 3, approval of minutes.
Move approval of the May 27th minutes as published.
Second.
Motion by Dave, second by Ross to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. On to approving the agenda. I believe there's any changes.
No changes.
Okay.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Lynn, second by James to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. On to approve consent items. Sheila, anything change in there?
Nope, no change on that. Check to Winona County for my time with the Whitewater, for the auditor, and also for domain renewal for the website.
Yeah, pretty simple. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ross, second by Lynn. Approve the consent items. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Board reports, James.
Well, mostly well ceilings. Grass waterway, and well, it's not really something that SWCD approving or voting on. Figured out there's something like 260,000 cover crop payments for June, July.
That's acres,
Dollars.
dollars.
Good. David?
The Jones County Board has agreed to once again pursue $9 million of legislative support for the soil health thing that we were involved in last year, so we continue to press on with that with hope. And I believe we got some money out of the LCCMR on soil health. I shouldn't even mention it because I can't remember how much. But anyway, soil health is, obviously continues to be important to our county. And actually, we were talking the other day about how do we amplify that interest with other counties. We haven't kind of figured that out. But we need more help at the capital office.
Good. We got Lynn.
Well, this is my last soil and water meeting because we were in Canada visiting my wife's relatives. But the next meeting we've got coming up in a few days, seems like there's a few glitches with the cover crop, things about how long it can go or who gets it, and maybe some board members have different ideas, so we're going to have a discussion this next meeting to try to fine tune that somehow.
You mean the continuance of paying out year after year?
Yeah,
Same
how long,
people?
is the best benefit to ensure that people would like to probably continue with it, or get used to it or whatnot.
Well, and I said since the inception, again, I always go back and say, when talking soil health and cover crops, since nobody wanted to listen. But I've always said, even on these taxpayer funded, these subsidies for that, the idea was always teach a person, show them the results, take them off the tax credit, you know? And that's where the 3-year thing, I think, came into play, that by year 3, this should become a practice, you know? I think where the hiccup is that it's promoted on every, you know, try to get every acre, and it becomes overwhelming. And what I've promoted for years, hey, if you did 10% of your farm, in 10 years, you've done the whole farm at least once. That's better than doing nothing, you know? So, and for a crop farmer, that's a little more easier to stomach. So I think the message needs to be clear that don't make it overwhelming.
Well, the other thing, like, is, you know, is no-till enough? That's what some people are wondering, you know, well, in my situation, sometimes there's no choice. If you want to grow grain for seed, like you do with the seed company, you can't have cover crop, because then you're out there pulling rye out of oats or whatever with 10 people, which it's hard to get 10 people now.
Yeah, well, I get it totally. Yeah, and that's where you say it's. I always know the purist wants to see it everywhere all the time, and it becomes overwhelming. So the farmer just quits and says, "Well, this is too hard to meet the standard, or this is too hard to public perception." So that's where I go back and encourage: do it where you can. Yeah, good discussion. Ross?
I just wanted to share, I just received Monday, September 8th, so 1 week, this coming Monday. No, 1 week from Labor Day Monday, September 8th, is a Soil Health Day at the Soil Health and Technology Day at Ken Bergler's farm, I believe. 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Monday, September 8th, Ken Bergler's farm. 27876 Gilmore Ridge Drive, Winona, Minnesota. So I did not hear about that. I just saw the share from the Winona County SWCD website. So has that been published?
I just received an email on it yesterday.
So it sounds very appealing, and
Indirectly, I think I've been asked to speak at that.
Okay.
That's what Jen told Josh. He asked me if I wanted to speak
Okay.
at it, so I don't know if we're going to.
Should I forward it to the rest of the board?
sure,
Yeah, you might as well.
please. So anyway, that side note, kind of proceeding from your comments with the cover crop. So our Winona County SWCD had conversations 2 meetings ago. I missed the last meeting because I tried to stay married and went to anniversary trip with my spouse.
What day was it?
It was the 8th,
Yeah.
1 week from Labor Day Monday. So I accomplished the marriage part. We're still married 30 years, so we took a nice trip, but missed the meeting. Anyway, the 2 meetings ago, lots of conversation about the cover crops and limited funds, and the pressure is coming from the, I'm going to call them cash crop grain producers, who are operating below cost of production, and there's no profit and there's no extra money and extra funding to pay for the cover crop. So we're getting a lot of pressure from landowners, help us out. And at the same time we're having that conversation, Commissioner Elsing alluded to it, the board has a position right now where we want to encourage first-time applicants only, and the others who have participated previously are lower on the priority list, and they will not receive funding until all the first-time applicants' deadline has been exhausted, if that makes sense. So there is a lot of controversy there, because there's a definite demand from the landowners who have no profit to pay for it. So they are seeking assistance, and we have limited assistance, so there we sit. But so there's that topic, and then the meeting in St. Charles was for.
Oh, for the WinLAC. We
So
had the
thank you.
policy committee meeting.
So I attended the WinLAC meeting with Sheila up in St. Charles, and we viewed the reconstruction of the tributary of the Whitewater. Is that technically South Branch, or what is that?
South, yeah. And
So that as it meanders through town, and it was extremely impressive to see the improvements and the flood mitigation, and we had just gotten a 4-inch rain.
mhm.
They had just received 4-inch rain and should have been decimated and flooded, but because of the efforts to I did not realize this. Historically, this stream bank was channeled, and if you channel a steep vertical banks, you get more velocity, more. It just picks up speed as it goes. So the Barth construction,
Yeah.
Denny Barth was there, was present, and reviewed and shared the. I did not realize that they excavate the bank and eliminate the steep part. They lower it so when the water level rises, it spreads out and slows it down, and that's the key. So it doesn't channel and cut. But the one thing I did not realize is the excavators physically dig into the bank at strategic points on the corners, and they bury giant root balls of giant oak trees, cottonwood trees. So they're burying these root balls strategically on the banks of the rivers, and reduces the erosion, changes the flow. Just 4-inch rain, nothing was decimated, nothing was eroded, very little erosion. So it was very impressive to see the result.
And I was impressed that even in spite of that newer part that they did, it was not yet vegetated, but it was shaped. And even after that rain, it was no issue.
I drive through there about 4 to 6 times a day because I live up the hill, so I'm constantly. And now with the detour, you gotta drive through there all the time. So it was interesting to watch all that, and it did go drastically over its banks, but when it subsided, it was wet. Obviously, they haven't been able to get in there. They're just actually starting to get in there yesterday and today. I noticed that, but it was definitely wet. But again, it was nothing eroded. And I've seen that creek multiple times over its banks, flooded back up into the alfalfa field, up into the trees, into people's yards in different spots. And typically, it's a pretty ugly mess when that happens. And now it just looked like almost like a lake, and then it just subsided down, is what it looked like. So
it was encouraging that the design worked flawlessly.
And they put it in meander. It used to be more of a straight cut,
Yeah.
and they put some meandering turns in it, which helps slow that volume down, slow the current down. So,
Yeah, it was impressive.
So that's all I had.
it's amazing how far that backs up into the city, because the main, a lot of people don't understand how many actual underground cement culverts go right through the center of the city that feed into that. So there's it takes a lot more. It takes a lot of the water from the city through there. Because there's 2 entry points on the north side of the bridge. There's an entry point that comes through, and that basically takes all the channeled water from the center of the town all the way over by Mike's Food Center, all the way up through the hill. So it's taking that entire ravine, channeling it all the way through the center of the city, and dumps it into that just on the other side of the bridge. And then it takes everything from the fairgrounds, everything past our building, clear out into, actually to the border of Olmsted County, and funnels it back through down it, and that's where it all channels to. So people don't understand how much water actually goes through that little spot right there. So kind of impressive to see that. What do you got, Don? Anything?
What do you want me to talk about?
She can talk.
You're sitting up here, so you might as well talk.
She can give an update on the alley.
You can,
Yeah.
we can do it on agency reports if you want. So
Yeah, I will wait until then because all
Okay.
pertains to that.
Our side, a couple things. Still working on our budget. We kind of started going on that for the county. We had a very successful family night on the farm out at the Clark Farm, so that was a good night. The weather was absolutely beautiful. You guys have had that before at multiple farms, so it's fun to get to see different farms in the area. Had a very successful fair this year. We had great weather for that for the most part, so well attended again, so it was good to see that. And then it's the typical kind of county business. We're still dealing with some LEC stuff and trying to figure out what to do there, and our strategic planning for our oh my gosh, 10-year plan.
Comp
Comp plan, thank you. Still working on our comp plan, getting some feedback on that. The other thing I say, probably the hot topic that I've received more phone calls on the last month than typically I do on roads has been the rifle permit. And so there's been a lot of phone calls, and for us having our unique territory,
Yeah.
probably we're pretty well established and known hunting counties, so trying to look at, what's right and what other counties are doing and how to do that. So it's I was very surprised to hear how many people are pro-rifle. I thought it would be the other way around. And so interesting to see where that's going to go. So, yeah, that's all I
Also
have.
kind of led the charge on, keeping a shotgun only. So I suspect that's what we'll do.
Can I make a comment on that? So I just want to point out that it's not widely known. Legal harvesting of deer has been taking place in Winona County for at least the last 10 to 15 years. Does everybody know that?
The legal harvesting? Yeah.
Legally,
Yeah.
so we applied, we rented a farm, had a lot of deer depredation, deer damage. We went through the channels of the DNR, we got the deer, they call them depredation tags.
Yep.
So we got 10 tags to shoot any deer. This is in July, August, when the damage is occurring. So we can use spotlights, we can use rifles, we can use any means that at our discretion. So we used rifles, we harvested 10 deer, we were issued 10 more permits, we harvested 8 more deer, all with rifles. That was 10 years ago. So I'm just pointing that out. I'm pro-rifle just because we have declining interest and declining participation in our hunter participation rates. So just like the traditional archery with the compound bow, now you can have the crossbow. So the purists didn't like that, but it's the same argument. The purists with the shotgun, yes, the bullet travels farther. Yes, it's potentially more dangerous, but then you look over to our east, to Wisconsin.
Rifle.
Rifle is, it's too deadly, it's too dangerous. Wisconsin is much further south than Minnesota. They use rifles all over the state. And to my knowledge, the research I've done, they have the same hunter accident rates as we do here in Minnesota with shotguns. So you would think they would have a much higher rate. They do not. So that I just wanted to point that out, that the rifles have been used here in Winona County for at least 10 to 15 years and probably longer. But I personally used them 10 years ago. So.
Yeah, so those harvest tags or bonus tags have been around for a long time. Wisconsin has them, we have them. It's, they're pretty common. And over in Wisconsin, obviously, the rifles, it's actually a pretty big advantage because they can kind of go from hillside to hillside versus pop shotting them across, So there's a lot of accuracy situations with rifles that, it fixes a lot of the accuracy shots that shotguns can't take. And, I've got rifles, got shotguns, and I feel the same. The rifles a lot more safe than if done correctly, than a shotgun. The biggest thing to me was I was surprised that opinion wouldn't be as common. I thought we were going to see a lot of pushback on it, and actually, I would say 90% of the phone calls, emails, and conversations I have have been pro-rifle. So, yep. Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right. Board discussion, financial update. Sheila.
Okay, so for the 3 months, we have, at the end of May, we had a total of $118,900, and June, that was $129,260. We had gotten a payment on one of the grants. And then in July, it was about the same, $129,947. But no real drastic changes across the 3 months.
Little money in, little money out. Page 14, if anybody's wondering.
Yep.
Any discussion on that? All right, move on to the well sealing grants.
Okay, well, the financial report.
Yeah, the audit side of
Yeah.
that, yes.
We all have the audit that was ready. This one had to be done by the end of June to be able to get submitted to the state auditor. And the auditor, Katie Jacobson, went ahead and did that on our behalf. And so just kind of reviewing the audit. Not much change from the year before, except less, well, we're finishing up that grant, the Whitewater Drinking Water Protection Grant. And that was one of the big things that got, I don't want to say dinged, but
Flagged.
flagged, right. So that grant, excuse me, ended at the end of December. And so that was when the grant ended, but there was 10% of the grant that yet needed to be paid after the report was completed and approved. And so we got that final payment in 2025 for a grant that ended in '24. So the error that I did is I did not account for that properly using financial.
Procedure, yeah.
Yeah, I should have accounted for that differently. And I just figured, well, when the money comes, then I put it in. And I should have accounted for it within the timeline of the grant before that happened. But I didn't, so that was $16,921.75. That was not recorded in the proper period of time. But yet I couldn't account for it until the grant was, the report was approved.
She and I
So-
had this discussion
Yeah.
down at the courthouse, and basically they said, well, it's a little bit of sleight of hand, and keep in mind, an auditor has to find something, or they're not doing their job. And the reality of it is, it's a little arbitrary to say one way or the other, that based on your accounting methods, is it correct or incorrect, So to me, I just saw it as, well, potato, a little bit. One person sees to record it this way, the next person sees to record it the next way. And because it's a yearly audit, it's not a continuing audit. You look at it for what it is in that year. And so you could argue and say, well, it's not accounted for in this year, but it's accounted for next year. Because really what it'll do is next year throw the audit into it, well, you counted this. It's a continuation.
Right.
So the biggest thing is duly noted, thank you, and move on.
Right,
Yep.
yeah, so I do account for it in journal entries. But I don't recall that being an issue because the Bowser grants typically end at the end of a calendar year. And so this is a different auditor than we had previously, so,
But much cheaper.
but much cheaper, yes. Yeah, so the quote that we had from the other auditor was for $5,000. And our bill for this audit was like $2,900. So, and then I did reach out to Katie Jacobson and asked if I could get a quote from her for doing the 2025 calendar year. And she's willing to do that, but she won't have the estimate or the quote done until November, so, which is fine, because we don't have our next meeting till November anyway. Yeah, but anyway, that it was earlier than she was prepared to.
As long as she can have it
Yeah.
before next meeting.
Yeah, and I told her the meeting date, and she said that would be no problem. So anyway, that's kind of where we were at. And also, what was brought up, which is always brought up by auditors, is that because the Joint Powers Board, I'm the only one I do the QuickBooks, I do the checks, I do everything, and there's not a second person looking over my shoulder to confirm things. Although when I bring the paperwork, the financial statements to the meetings, I make sure that they get signed, and so that's kind of our catch-all. But it's still noted that, hey, you got one person doing this, and that's a problem. But we do have 2 signatures on the check, and we're only required to have 1, but we do 2. So those are the, and those aren't surprising. I mean,
That's every
that comes
year.
up every year.
Every year that comes up, and our rebuttal to it is, thank you, you're doing your job, this is the way we are. We got a
Right.
system of checks and
Right,
balances.
right. And so we try to account for that, but anyway, so that's our audit, so we need to be able to approve or acknowledge the audit for 2024.
Any discussion on that?
I mean, just to ask, do we pay all our bills with a check?
Yes, we do.
Two signatures?
We don't have a credit card. And that kind of can be a problem, but anytime we have invoices that need to be paid, I let them know when our meetings are, and this is when the check will be, typically, because even, like, for example, the bill I got from Katie, it says right on the invoice, due in 30 days, and I said, well, our next meeting isn't until, and she says, no problem. They understand that.
For the most part, for the little bit that we need to do, it's doable.
Yeah, and make it work.
Step into the realm of a credit card and you open up a whole new can of worms.
I don't want to enter in that world.
I was just wondering, definitely not, probably not enough checks to worry about, in terms of having to run all over town trying to get a signature.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? We have a motion to approve the audit report.
Oh, so moved.
Second.
Motion by David, second by Lynn to approve the audit report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, on to the Whitewater well sealing grant.
Okay, so we have the Whitewater well sealing grant, and right now that grant officially ends at the end of this year, and I had requested with Bowser to be able to extend that 1 year until the end of '26. And so that's why I was hoping Dave would be here today, but he had some other things come up. But anyway, that's what I was hoping, is that, I need to, if that's what we're gonna do, I need to move forward on that so it's ready, the grant amendment is ready to be approved officially at the November meeting. So that gives us enough time to transition with the amendment. Right now, the grant, we've sealed 2 wells, and right now Olmsted County has 1 well that needs to be, that's contracted with this grant to be done. I haven't heard if it has been completed yet, but that's kind of, and then last meeting we had switched over to letting the individual SWCDs approve those so that there's a quicker turnaround. Because we did miss out because of the timing of our meetings, 3 other well sealings. And so hopefully now we're in a better position and we'll be able to get that money moved faster. But anyway, I'm looking for today to approve me to move forward with an extension with an amendment. If that's,
Remind me again, how did we miss them?
because they were situations, the one for sure was, I talked with Caitlin Meyer at Olmsted, and it was a situation where a farmer purchased land and it had a well on it, and he wanted to get it addressed and sealed before he put in the crops. And and it didn't fit the timing of our, to bring it here to approve it. So they approved it and got a WinLAC grant, which was the same amount.
Still got done.
It still got done,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But it just, how it got explained to me is when somebody decides they want to seal a well, they want to seal it now. And it was much easier to do a monthly meeting schedule with the SWCs to be able to accommodate that need. So that's kind of how that came down.
So is that, well, landlocked then, or
What do you mean landlocked?
where they got so close to the crop, there was no access any other time?
No, it was just that it was land that they purchased and decided, okay, I want to get this sealed and done so that I can put my crop in and not have to worry
Oh.
about.
That's what I asked though.
Yeah.
they blow right over where it was sealed then and plant afterwards?
I
or
don't know how.
Don't they leave space anyway? That's what, I couldn't understand why it's so critical.
Yeah, well, I don't understand, I mean, the well's gonna be there, you know,
Right.
get it done down the road, you know,
Right.
it's, what's the matter if it's November or July, seal and
Right,
seal it.
right.
So, the other question I had is, what has been the average cost to seal these? Has it been 4,000, 5,000?
25 to 3,000, yeah. That's what I've seen for the basic run of the mill, although I think it was a known stick, when I went to the meeting last month, there was one that went up to 4,500. And that one was kind of an unusual situation, you know, and you don't know how much it's gonna cost until you start to seal it, and then you realize, I think it was a case where they were going down and then they realized that it was an open cavern, and then they had to put in more cement to be able to, yeah, so there was, and you don't know until it's an open spot.
You know, years ago when I was mayor in Altura, we sealed one right up in the alleyway. It was actually a very interesting well. I used to feed down to the turkey store and stuff, and there was an underground wooden chute and everything. It's kind of crazy. And we found it. It was amazing. We found it with a shovel one day.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time the state had grants for $10,000 to seal a well. And I said, boy, that seems awfully high. I think we could do a lot more wells, you know, for $10,000 than one, you know, but that's what they said they were gonna cost to seal. So,
Yeah, and I think that's kind of high, although I talked to Scott Hansen yesterday, and in October, they're gonna increase that from 10 to 15, because some of the wells that they're trying to seal are difficult ones, and they just want to make sure that it's covered and that the landowner doesn't accrue any expenses that are unexpected.
gotcha. So we have a request to amend grant extend until December 31st, which will need a board action. to
Yeah, that'll
do
be
that.
at the next
So,
meeting, yeah.
Want to do it at the next one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to move forward on that.
Local advisory team, Elgin's, how's that coming?
So my counterpart Mike Cruz is technically oversees that one, but we work together on everything. But so Elgin just had a meeting 13th, and
Participation good?
it was okay. There was probably less people at this meeting than there have been in meetings past, but that's kind of the run of the mill with all the LATs. You get good participation in the first few meetings, and then you get over so many, and that's with any meetings. But they are at the point where they basically went through the proposed BMP list, and now that list, Mike is working on finalizing all the documents that will be sent up to the commissioner, and that internal team will have to approve or make suggestions to that list if something needs to be changed. The anticipated timeline is for that BMP list to be published yet this year for Elgin. And then after the BMP list is published, the producers within that DWSMA get 3 growing seasons to adopt the BMPs. However, Elgin is different than any other DWSMA in the state, actually, because of the longest lag time, or the shortest lag time calculated. They're actually going to get 10 years to adopt this BMP list because of the time of travel. That's written into like the rule and stuff. It's the only one in the state like that.
Isn't the time of travel?
It's the shortest calculated lag time there is greater than 3 years. It's actually like 10 days. It just has to do with the geology of it there. So
Interesting.
in every other case thus far, a BMP list that's published, the farmers are getting 3 growing seasons to adopt it, but Elgin is going to be different. Now they will do like BMP surveys basically within those 10 years to help promote and the adoption of the BMP, so when it comes time for the official evaluation, you know, we're not lagging behind. It is suggested that they follow the 0.1 MRTN for rate in the list. So if that gets approved, that's what the rates are. There is, you know, we've been talking a lot about cover crops in this meeting and stuff, and in these level 2 DWISMAs, the Department of Ag does have funding for practices. Cover crops and delayed termination is a part of that. For cover crops, it's the maximum a person can receive is $5,000 a year for this grant, and that's like 125 acres of cover crops. I know that just off the top of my head, but hasn't been any bites really yet in Elgin on that, but Altura and Utica, I think I'm up to over 400 acres. So there was people last year that did it, and people this year that are doing it in those two.
How are you seeing the majority of the cover crops applied? Are you seeing a bulk spread? Are you seeing them drilled in?
Mostly drilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there especially, you know, when you look at I'm going to say more of the conventional type farmer that may not have even a drill or an air seeder. You know, West, we got a lot of air seeders. Well, are they renting it, hiring it, or they?
Most people I've worked with have been doing it on their own, or they have
a drill.
somebody that
They know how to drill.
has a
Yeah.
drill. So this money, a person can use every year.
Mhm.
This doesn't have to be new acres. And so, you know, you talked a lot about that 3-year time frame and then moving on, right? I think mindset might have to change a little bit, or we have to think a little bit in these DWISMAs that are under the groundwater protection rule, that it might be more of a mindset of paying for water quality improvements, like over time, and enabling that funding to stay there in the long term to help in those specific areas. But so this money, it can be, it doesn't have to be new acres, it can be the same acres every year, because you're working with the same exact acres and the same farmers every year in these level 2 DWISMAs. So that is available for people in Elgin, and also to go back on like Winona and Wabasha County SWCDs, the Department of Ag has funneled some funding there for nutrient management positions. Like, so the 2 techs that work there, Amanda Gentry and Deanna Hamier, I can never pronounce her last name. Part of their time is to work on writing manure and nutrient management plans and calibrating spreaders and stuff like that. So there's a grant with them through Department of Ed for part of their time to go to that. And they have been writing some plans, and we've been working on them. The lead nutrient management specialist is Sarah West at Fillmore SWCD, and she kind of helps oversee the 2 of them and make sure the plans are written properly and kind of approves them too. That's kind of the path we're going down. I've talked a lot about the on-farm trials in the past meetings. We have the university one right outside of the Elgin DWISMA. I'm hoping to put together just a very informal, small walkthrough field day for the producers. I would like to just invite the LAT members, and then I'll probably extend it out to this board as well, because we kind of overlap with some of our work. If we get too many people at that walking through that plot, gets a little difficult, but I really want to extend it out to the LAT members because it's right there. And every year Jeff Vetch presents data from those research plots at winter crop meetings, and he usually, it's usually recorded and the university usually puts it up on their YouTube channel at the end of the year too. So there's multiple ways that data will get distributed. This is just a very small scale field walkthrough that I try to get some people to. So. And was it last year or the year before, we held meetings in each of the DWSMAs down here and had the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certifier talk about that program and hand out applications to farmers that are interested. And we have had 2 people get egg certified, I know, in the up around the Altura DWSMA. And there are certified farmers within the Utica DWSMA, and I'm not sure if anybody has finished certification for in the Elgin one yet or not. So, but when we had those 3 meetings, everybody took applications and had some interest. So I thought that was really good. But it takes a while to get certified, but we're kind of at that point where some have. The Department of Ag is also now working in the high testing townships, voluntary, talking to farmers and either forming LATs, or in the southeast we're approaching it differently by farm walkovers. And Bob Scanlon is
When you
a,
say high testing, is that nitrates?
yep. So the Department of Ag had sent out township testing kits a long time ago, and then they did a round 1 and a round 2, and then did a bunch of evaluation. There's so many townships in each county down here that are 10% or more of the wells have tested over 10 milligrams per liter, and so those are considered our high testing townships. We're starting work in Houston County. Bob Scanlon with the Department of Ag is down there doing some farm walkovers similar to the River Field to Stream Partnership, if you've heard of that. And he's concentrating on a couple of the townships down in Houston County right now. Eventually, I think it will work its way out into other townships in other southeast counties, so up here too. So just kind of on your radar that work is happening as well. So Sheila, you had talked about the groundwater grant. I think you guys did cover crop money through that.
Yep.
That's a Bowser grant, and is it the drinking water protection grant? Is that the one you went through?
That's the one that ended, yes.
Okay, so Bowser will open applications in 2026 for that again. And so funding wouldn't come available until 2027. So we're gonna hit a year lag here in that. Fillmore SWCD also had one of those grants, and the only reason I bring this up is when we did that one with Fillmore, that had had our on-farm trial work that covered several counties, and also we set it up so we did some nitrogen incentive payments within there. So if you were following the university's recommendation, you could get an incentive for following that. And that is the only grant that has any cost share towards following rate, okay? There are no other grants out there. That money has been spent in that grant, so we don't have that going forward until we reapply for it. The plan is to reapply for it. I bring this up because I don't know if this group would be interested in applying for another one of those grants and setting it up somewhat similar. Because you have high testing townships in this area, And I know we're gonna restructure that incentive payment a little differently. But it's just a thought, because there are no other grants out there that put incentives towards following the proper rate. And when you're working with, I call it the low-hanging fruit, with some very high over application, maybe that would help incentivize towards working down towards the more appropriate rates. So I just bring it up because that will be,
This would be clean water funds,
yeah,
and those are, yeah, apply in 26 for 26.
yeah. Yeah. Because, you know, to get your foot in the door and working with people, that has helped a lot. But that we won't have any money for 2026. So, other than that, the crops look really good this year. Here. And like you, I believe my anniversary is tomorrow, actually. When you said that, and I'm 10 years behind you. This is our 20th, I believe.
Congratulations.
I don't know. I am still trying to recoup from State Fair, and the last 3 years we've celebrated our anniversary at State Fair with a hello and a goodbye as he comes and picks up the truck and trailer and goes home, and my son and I are waiting to load the pig and couple. So I was like, oh, maybe we'll actually do something. But yeah, I think for those of you that pay attention to plot work down here, the results might be interesting. I think we had a lot of soil mineralization this year. The check strips really aren't showing up that great this year, so that means that, the mineralization is there, maybe some lesser consumption of nutrients in the corn plant itself a little bit again this year. Not like our drought years in the past. And the split application I'm very curious about this year, depending on where you are and when the rains hit. Some of these, I think for the most part, we had timely rains in southeast Minnesota, but then there are some areas that maybe got hit a little harder that maybe the split application will outperform pre-plant, but we'll see. So that's all I have. Anybody has any questions?
So I just want to add to that an observation. I was pretty optimistic on yield. I am currently pessimistic on yield because of southern rust, which is a new fungus, right? It's a fungus.
No, but yeah.
Well, it's new to Minnesota, new to southeast Minnesota. So yesterday I walked in some fields. Have you walked fields, like the interior fields?
I was just up at Morgan's.
So I was extremely alarmed when I got inside. So we apply fungicide at tassel. So July 31st, it's an aerial application. We used a drone for the most part, and it's supposed to prevent fungus problems mostly. The black tar spot is what we're trying to protect against. So anyway, this is a new enemy to us. It's called southern rust. And I walked into the interior of the field. All of the leaves are brown until my chest height. And for this time of year, that's concerning. They should be green. But the aerial drone, it's a mist of fungicide and only reaches the top leaves because of the canopy. It does not reach and protect the lower leaves. So from my chest down, they're all brown. Not every field, but a lot of the fields that I scouted were all brown. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, so actually for us, we're fortunate because I have staff that are clear down to the Missouri border. We have locations down there, warehouses, offices and stuff, so we get to, we go south, east, and west from here. So we actually knew that was coming a long time ago, so we've been forewarning our farmers to really time their applications accordingly. And we said I was just up in Morris, and a lot of the dairies here. If we get west, it's a different scenario. But we actually saw the hook of that come through clear back since the beginning of, end of June, beginning of July, when the timing of that moves, obviously based on where you're at in the country. So we knew it was coming. It's not something that's very common, but I've seen plenty of southern rust up here before. but this year it's exaggerated quite a bit. So we were forewarning our farmers for plant health. We did a lot of plant health stuff early on. We went back and made sure that, regardless of who they were buying seed from, to look over their variety selection to see if there was a southern rust score, to help time, potentially even go to 2 fungicide passes if needed to protect the crop. So we actually saw the hook start in Missouri, southern Iowa, and kind of progressed over to the western side of the state. We would do a lot of work in Nebraska. Some very large growers out there, so we began to scout fields. I was scouting fields back in July, already seeing it come in, and it kind of made a hook and around. So we were able to kind of forewarn a lot of people that, hey, we think this is coming. We see the same trends with tar spot. We tend to be able to predict that to a certain extent. That tends to be more pocket orientated. Southern rust tends to generate large areas. So, and again, it's the nice thing, we kind of can sound the alarm when we see some of these diseases coming. It was kind of odd how it did curve around. So we have areas that don't have it. So it definitely will decimate a crop to a certain extent. Fungicide helps. Drone application can help a little bit because we can see it blow down. Now the good thing for the crop guys is they're not so concerned about the bottom leaves. If you're dealing with silage, that's a different scenario. So very interesting, been in Evers corn, been in Moore Young's corn, side by side, and one variety will have it and one variety won't. So,
What's the
you can split a field
tolerance
guide.
of,
Or it's very
Before-
little in one and more predominant.
no, but like, before they say it's actually gonna affect yield? How many leaves?
Yeah, and so the bottom leaves are not as crucial in that later stage development of the plant. The tops are. That's why anthracnose is so bad, because it actually rots the lower part of the stalk out, and then it kills the top leaves, where that's where 80-90% of your photosynthesis is happening.
But
So-
do they give like a percentage?
Defoliation on any plant is a rising. It's definitely a rising deal. So they start at 5 and work their way all the way up to 80% defoliation. So, like I said, southern rust can be a little bit of a wishy-washy deal depending on how I've seen southern rust come in, and supposedly it's supposed to take off the top 20%, and it doesn't. I've seen it come in where they say, hey, it depends on at what stage, typically, how early you get southern rust in. It's like a lot of crops. The earlier you get it, the worse it's going to be on the back end. So it's hard to put, hey, 50% of the crop, 50% of the leaf pattern is covered. Well, if I have that in July versus I have that in August 20th, we've got 2 totally different scenarios. So that's what makes it hard to determine yield out of that disease. The trend is the earlier it is, obviously, the worse it's going to have the impact. When you start looking at full defoliation, what we tend to see is if southern rust has a weight to it, you can scratch it off. There's a material there, right? So it actually can add weight to a leaf. Not to mention it kills that leaf tissue, making it more susceptible to wind damage, hail damage. So the people that are trying to retain the leaves suffer a lot more than the people who are just trying to produce it here. So it's all over the board, Don. Even by statistics or university statistics, I've seen where it should fail a crop and it hasn't, and I've seen where it decimated a crop. So there's definitely going to be a yield drag associated to it. It's tough to say how much. I was just happy if we would have got tar spot and southern rust, we would have saw a lot of. There are a few places that have both of them. I've been in some fields. The problem with fungicide is that it's time selective. It's very sensitive to a certain amount of time, and you only get a protection. So that's why we're forewarning our guys, hey, really pay attention to this, because that window of application is going to be all the difference between making that fungicide effective and not making it effective. It's why we're seeing a lot more talk about plant health too, and variety selection. A topic that I see when we talk about the soil health thing is, I think, probably one of the fastest growing sectors of our business. We talk about mineralization. For those guys that don't understand what Don was talking about, with the amount of water that we've had, we're releasing and breaking down organic substances in the soil, which takes water to do that. And in those compounds, we are releasing nutrients, including nitrogen. So in the drier years, we don't tend to do that. So the complexity of a carbon ratio to nitrogen ratio is indicative of the lignified substances that hold the bonds together. And so when you have a wetter year, you tend to release more of those nutrients. The problem with it is you also release next year's reserve. So it's a catch-22 in a little bit of in some sort of fashion. We are seeing the onset, and coming from a guy that sells fertilizer every day, we do it a lot different than the co-ops do. But finally, also just like cover crops years ago, micronutrients, all these trends, before anybody wants to talk to them, or talk about them, we're seeing more and more, and a lot of it is to do with high input costs and low commodity prices. We are seeing an increase in people wanting to understand enzyme technologies, ways, biological technologies, ways to reduce fertilizer inputs and get more back out of the soil. Catalysts that create things like biocals and upshifts and different things that are calcium sources or enzyme sources that will release nutrients and keep them from going away, going to the water profile, washing away, whatever it is, and using what we already have. That trend, in fact, I'll be down in southern Iowa doing a meeting here next week about that. One very large growers and massive hog farmers down there we work with. And their program is how do we get more out this winter? That's their program. And so what we're seeing is the days of people just, we got to put some potash on the hay. Those days are gone, or leaving, because people are saying, well, wait a minute, I got all this potassium out there. What can I do to just extract it? Hey, I got all this phos out there. What can I do to just extract it? And so it's people are looking for catalysts rather than buying the nutrients. Or if they already have the nutrients, in the case of manure, it's how do we get more out of it? And how do we continue to get more out of it so we don't see this rising bank in the soil? Why can't we tap into that? So, because the soil test will lie to you. Because it's just a plant extraction method as to being what the plant can do. Well, there's other catalysts to pull it out of the soil. So we are seeing a massive rise in those discussions right now because of high fertilizer prices, low commodity prices. How do I farm with what I have? And so, unfortunately for us, we've been doing it for years and years and years. So I say this politely, but the co-op mentality is beginning to fade, and these new technologies and new ways. So, and it's farmer driven. Because they're looking for changes and they're tired of doing the same thing. So just the same as cover crops years ago before they became somewhat accepted and popular, that's the avenue that we're seeing the trend in, and it is by far farmer driven. It's economic driven, but when you get into these types of times, you start looking for different ways. So it's a good thing, and unfortunately there's some phenomenal stuff out there to work with. So save guys a lot of money. So, yeah, Southern Rust Killer, been watching it for how long? Fortunate we were able to fend a lot of it off. So. Okay, spongy moth proposal update.
Okay, at our last meeting, I think it was, remember they said they were going to spray for the spongy moth, and then because of funding cuts, they said, oh, we're not going to do it now. Well, last week of June, got an email, yep, we're going to spray for spongy moth this week.
So they wishy-washy.
They were told they weren't going to have the money, and then they were told they were going to get the money, but it wasn't going to be soon enough to be able to.
That was the big deal. I thought it was timing.
Yeah, it was the timing, but they did
Did it
do
anyway.
it. Yeah. So I guess that's good. But that
As
was
long as
just
it works,
interesting
I
how
mean,
that
yeah.
flip-flop back and forth, but
Okay, that's it.
yeah.
So technically, we've done our agency report, right? Any other comments, suggestions, thoughts?
Oh, I think the soil health grant, so like for like some soil health equipment and stuff that people have done, I believe that closes soon.
Okay. And that's what the SWC is?
Yeah, but it's the MDA, it's the very competitive one that you fill out an application for,
Oh.
and through Department of Ag, but you can work with your soil and water on that. I want to say
September
it
1st, maybe?
was like the 28th or 9th of August. Like, it's pretty soon. I remember reading about it in one of the university, like, Minnesota crop updates that they, email out. So I know there's a lot of people in the area that have applied for that and gotten money to that, so that is.
I guess I'll throw one more out there, and it's not, I'm not trying to plug it because my company's gonna be taking over the Midwestern Biobank facility. They're pulling out retail, but we have a very neat, long-term plot with Glenn Hag, Glenn Hag's farm, right next to Daly's. Daly's are paying attention to this too, but we have multiple locations where we've been using high calcium fertility instead of more NPK. Now, we still have that side going out, but showing how we're changing soil structure, showing how we're releasing more nutrients. Mr. Hag is blown away by this, and so we're having a field day on the 4th. It's actually a customer appreciation day in conjunction with BioEg, but this will be Midwestern BioEg's last year as we take it over, but they will still be a supplier for us. So very interesting stuff to see this play out. I believe this is year 3 on this. They're going to take a few hay rides over there to show some crops off, drone footage, pending weather. But it's, they have a silage burn down and things like that too, but it's kind of a customer appreciation day / soil situation. If anybody's interested in going, just let me know because they do have an RSVP for a amount of meals. It's free to go to it. You're welcome to attend and see what they've got going on. But for those that don't know, Glenn has a lot of cattle, and so has a lot of manure. And so we're showing him actively how you can, and it's pretty impressive when you see it. So, and so now obviously the neighbors are paying attention to this too. So there's supposedly some highfalutin people coming in from around the country for this too. So if anybody's interested, just give me a call. Other than that, that's September 4th. This 4th is 3rd. I can speak. Yes, September 4th. Okay. Next meeting, November 25th. Any conflicts with that?
Thanksgiving.
I think it's the week of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a
Same
Tuesday.
bad time, same bad. Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll have a motion to adjourn.
Send your moves.
Second by Dave. Second. Sorry. Motion by Dave, second by James. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.